Hi everyone, welcome to Halo Zone. My name is EliteAssassin, and today I want to talk to you guys about Halo Reach, and specifically, what we can expect from the multiplayer when it comes to the Master Chief Collection. Now, for those of you who maybe weren't around during Halo Reach, or maybe gave up Reach right in the beginning and didn't stick around to see what happened with it, there was something interesting that happened with the multiplayer later on in its life cycle that really gives me pause for concern as to what we're going to see when it comes to the Master Chief Collection. Sorry about that. Getting a little bit of a cold here. Now, when Reach came out, the multiplayer was vastly different from what we're used to in Halo for a variety of reasons, whether it be the armor abilities, whether it be the loadouts, or whether it be a bunch of different mechanics they added to the guns that really changed the feel of the game. And at first, a lot of people didn't like it. However, when 343 took over the reins of Halo, one of the first things they did was implement a title update to Halo Reach, which, in my opinion, changed the game for the better. The reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason I have a little bit of pause for concern when Halo Reach comes to MCC, is because I'm not sure which Halo Reach we're going to see. Now, that might not make much sense because you said, hey, Assassin, you said there's a title update. And yes, there was. But 343 never fully committed to the title update when it came to Halo Reach. They actually broke the multiplayer off into Classic and Title Update. So, I'm not really sure which one or both they're going to bring to the Master Chief Collection. It really wouldn't make much sense to me for them to split the community again like they did with Halo Reach, having one or the other. But you really never know. They couldn't fully commit back then to the update, so I don't know what's to make them do it now. If you were to go on Reach right now, I was actually very shocked to see that the old multiplayer actually has more players than Title Update. Which honestly shocks me. Because like I said before, the Title Update made Halo Reach a much better game. And a game that at least felt a little bit more like the older games in the Halo series. So, what's so big about this title update, and why do I hope that it's going to be the multiplayer we get when Halo Reach launches for the Master Chief Collection? To start off with, we have Bloom. Bloom was a mechanic added in Reach that applied to the DMR, needle rifle, pistol, and actually really every gun, but it was precision weapons mostly that really got affected by it. It made so you had to pace your shots, which, in theory, made sense, but it also slowed down gunfights because it wasn't how fast you could pull a trigger, it was how fast you pull a trigger and, time it correctly to where the reticle is back. And it left some really awkward gunplay. There were times people could spam it and get lucky with the Bloom and still hit you, whereas you were trying to pace your shots and, they might kill you quicker because they were spamming and, the randomness of Bloom, you got hit and you would lose a duel. Not very often, but it's still, the fact the randomness was there, it felt bad. Just having Bloom just felt weird, especially coming from, 3 games where you didn't really have to worry about that, to now getting used to that. So, it made Reach unique, but it also just kind of, I don't know, slowed down the game, at least in my opinion. Now, with the title update, they modified the Bloom to 85% of what it originally was, and this made it a lot better. Now, of course, a lot of people might argue that the MLG playlist with the Zero Bloom is the best Reach, and honestly, I'm kind of in I'm in that category too. I agree with that as well. But having the 85% Bloom felt a lot better. The DMR felt a lot more fun to use, the pistol felt better to use, and it actually made the needle rifle so good that they had to take it out of loadouts because they felt it was too powerful with how accurate it was with 85% Bloom. Because it actually really didn't fire much different than 0%. So, I'm not sure how the logistics of that worked, but I do know that it did feel a lot better and it was a lot more deadly. So, that was one big change they did to it. The next real big change they did to the mechanics of Halo Reach with the title update was how bleed-through damage worked. In older Halo games, if you were to, say, 2-shot someone with the BR and melee them, you would break their shield and do a bit of damage. Same thing with the 3-shot. If you 3-shot someone with the BR, did melee, they were in a state where you could 1-shot them to the head and kill them. because the damage bled through the shields. Same thing in Halo 2. You know, all the Halo games had that. If you got someone down to their shield almost breaking and meleeed them, or did something else, the damage went soaked through the shield into your health, and you left them in a state where you could one or two shot them. In Halo Reach, that wasn't the case. I don't know if it was because of the health packs they had in the game, or what, but the way that the shielding and damage worked in original Reach was, if you had even the slightest bit of shield left, and someone went for a melee on you, the damage would only affect that tiny bit of shield. It would never go through to the health. And it made close range fighting very awkward. Especially with automatic weapons, where if one stray bullet from your opponent hit you and took your shield off and yours didn't, and you melee at the same time, you'd get devastated and they'd be fine. It was really, really weird. You know, same thing with like having the DMR. With the BR, you used to go 3-shot melee, and you'd be able to finish them off. Well, with the DMR, if you 4-shot, I think shields broke at 4 shots with the DMR. So if you were to 3-shot someone and melee them, well, too bad. It only popped shield, and left the fight still going, and was very, very awkward and just didn't feel right. Luckily, with the title update, they got rid of it. So, you know, now if you were to 3-shot someone and melee them with the DMR, the damage would go through and leave them in a vulnerable state. Or if you were in an AR duel and you melee someone, you know, as long as you did enough damage to go through the shield, you would actually go through the shield. So it made firefights feel better. It made the combat flow just a little bit faster, and again, felt a little bit more familiar. The next two things have to do with armor abilities, and two of the ones that are, in my opinion, the most busted in Reach, and that's armor lock and camo. Armor lock in specific is kind of like almost a meme I've seen online. You know, people going, "Oh yeah, armor lock in 4K." Everyone getting kind of jokingly hyped for armor lock again. You know, I'll be honest with you. I enjoyed armor lock in the Reach beta. I thought it was fun. It was silly, but boy, oh boy, was it overpowered, and boy, did it just slow down the gameplay to almost a crawl at times. It just didn't feel good in the game. It didn't feel right. It was very frustrating when you would kill yourself on it, which honestly is also kind of funny. And I'll give people a good place for that. But it just felt so out of place. And luckily with the title update, they made it so it wasn't so invincible. Basically the way it seems like they did it is that any damage you take while on armor lock kind of shortened the amount of time you had to use armor lock. So you could survive a rocket, but then you're immediately ejected out of armor lock. It also made it so that if you were stuck while in armor lock, you know, when you got out of it, you could die from it. Before, sticky grenades would just fly off armor lock and you were basically invincible just sitting there. But at least with the title update, you know, damage was able to shorten the amount of time you could armor lock, and you were able to actually die if you were stuck while in armor lock. So, or at least stuck while in the animation of armor lock. So it just felt a lot better. It made it so armor lock wasn't such a momentum stopper, and it just made it easier to deal with. So I'm all for that. I wasn't the biggest fan of armor lock. In certain game modes, it could be fun, like multi-team and some of the more goofier ones. I was okay with it. But when it came to like Team Slayer and stuff like that, it just made the game flow better with that adjustment. Camo also needed to be adjusted. It was just way too long, and I personally am not a fan of just giving people camo to use off the bat no matter what game. It just feels a bit broken because, yeah, who doesn't want that sight advantage? And Reach's was pretty crazy. Luckily, they reduced the time by 15 seconds that you could use it, so that right there told you it was a pretty long time you had to sit there invisible and do whatever you wanted, especially with the sniper rifle. So at least they adjusted it and made it a little bit more fair. And the last thing I want to talk about is the shield or sword block, which was a very, very awkward mechanic to add to the game. In Halo 3, if you had a sword and your enemy had a sword, you used one at the same time, you would clash. And that made sense. You both had swords. Well, magically in Halo Reach, every Spartan had 4 arms that can block energy swords. Somehow. As long as you made it at the right time, you could actually block sword lunges, which made the sword kind of inferior, honestly. Because, I mean, you didn't have to really time your shotgun shot right anymore. If you just knew someone was coming with the sword, you can melee and then shotgun, and then they were screwed. You'd survive and they'd die. It really, really, really downplayed the sword and just felt odd. I'm all for sword clashing if two people have swords, but if you don't have a sword, well, too bad. Like, people might say, oh, it's unfair, they're running around with the sword and sprint. Yeah, it does suck having to deal with that. But at the same point in time, you know, there's supposed to be counters on the map to deal with the sword. That's why it's there. And it's also a power weapon. You know, that's why you're supposed to push for it, because it's powerful. And it just felt like allowing everybody to just melee block it was not a good way to go. So that was taken out. And that's really a lot of the major updates to the title update. It just, like I said, made the game play a lot better. And I really, really hope this is the multiplayer we get when it comes to the Master Chief Collection. Because if we get the initial Halo Reach, it's just not going to feel good. I mean, I'm hyped for the Halo Reach announcement, but I went back to get this footage, and I had to play a lot of the non-title update Reach. I was not enjoying it. Really at all. All these glaring mistakes that I researched really came, not mistakes, but all these glaring changes really shone through when I knew about it and was playing. So, I don't know. I really, really hope they do the right thing and bring Title Update to Reach. But I just want to make you guys aware that, you know, there are two different kinds of Halo Reach, and there is the fact that we might get one over the other, or both. So, in the comments down below, let me know, guys, what you think. Would you rather have Original Reach? Did you like that better? If you're someone who played Title Update, or just, you know, kind of liked what I talked about and like the changes that Title Update brought, you know, would you like to see Title Update, or would you like to see both, to be able to experience both versions of Halo Reach for yourself, and maybe in the future kind of have a community vote to keep one or the other in the game? You know, what do you guys want to see? All right, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for all the other videos from our great content creators. Thanks, and have a good day.